I, 29F, have been dating my boyfriend, 35M, Ricky for 5 months. He's divorced but hates this word and goes with the word divorcee instead, since the first one makes it sound like he was dumped when it was him who initiated it. Anyways, he always goes on long rants about his exes and says stuff like, "I hope you don't have this awful habit my ex has," or "I hope you like XYZ cause my ex didn't," and the list goes on. I found a second job recently, and he's been having me pay every time we go out. When I protest, he'd say he's going through a rough patch and is seeing how much help I can offer. Last night he invited his family to join us for dinner. We got to the restaurant first. He asked me if I brought enough money. I asked why and he told me that he told his parents that I'd pay for their meals. I said why would I, and he went on about his parents going through a rough patch just like him. I said I'm sorry, this can't be a coincidence. He asked what I meant and I told him that I would not be paying. He insisted, but I refused and said no. He then leaned back and said, "Well, you're here, so not much of a choice you have anyway," while laughing like it was funny. I silently got up, took my phone and purse, and walked right out. He was shocked. He started shouting after me to stop and wait, but I didn't. I went home and he called me enraged, saying that I did a horrible thing walking out on him and his parents while I could have just paid. I told him that their unfortunate financial situation wasn't my problem and that I wasn't obligated to pay for their food. If they couldn't pay for their meals, then they should not go out. He got offended and said, and I quote, "You're making money a priority just like my ex did." Then went on about how disrespectful my attitude was and how I made him look small in front of his parents and forced him to lie about why I wasn't there when they came. We've been going back and forth about it till now. He's mad and is refusing to speak to me till I apologize. Am I the idiot? I feel bad because his parents are lovely and I have been doing my best to keep a good relationship with them. Oh my god girl, run, this is not a man you want or need in your life. Go, go, go and don't look back like ever, not the idiot by a long shot. This cannot be repeated too many times. Yup. This man didn't initiate the divorce, he was dumped. He's clearly not over his ex. You deserve better. Not being the new love that drives out old love, that's crap, especially when the other person doesn't have anything to offer and is only taking advantage of you emotionally and financially. Divorcee versus divorced, red flag. Ranting about his ex on repeat, red flag. Expecting you to pay for everything, red flag. Seeing how much help I can offer, red flag. Expecting you to pay for his parents and not warning you ahead of time, red flag. Comparing you to an ex because you don't want to pay for his family, red flag. This dude is full of red flags. It's time to run. Not the idiot. This feels like one of those where if OP just read what she wrote she wouldn't need this sub. Like, do you not see what you're saying here? Not the idiot. Oh, the audacity is strong with this one, and the red flags are waving. Girl, just leave him. If he expected you to pay for him and his parents once, chances are he'll do it again. Like you said, their financial issues aren't your problem. He said it was temporary, but I don't know. His parents are nice people. They treat me better than my own family. They're using you. That's not treating you well. Treat yourself better by moving on from them. My mother is in prison for defrauding the government for 10+ years, which finally caught up with her. About 2 years ago, I was subpoenaed by the court to testify and ended up being the testimonial that ultimately sent her to federal prison. She has been in prison for just over a year now. As a result, we are estranged. However, I wasn't given much of a choice because my current profession has strict legal requirements that I can't risk bending or I'll lose everything. Fast forward to this past week, my maternal grandfather passed away suddenly from complications from a stroke he had 2 months ago. Everyone is sad and devastated, and it's been hard to reconcile the loss during COVID-19. A lot of prisons will grant furlough for those who wish to attend their loved one's funeral, something we already had to do back in February when my grandmother passed away. And I was the one who filled out the paperwork and was 100% responsible for my mother during her furlough. So once I received news of my grandfather's passing, I started on the paperwork but stopped because it turned out that my grandfather is going straight to cremation without a funeral or service because that is what my grandfather wanted. And I told my family that we weren't furloughing my mother out because of the fact there is no service or funeral. My family understood. Fast forward to today, when my sibling calls me to thank me for furloughing our mom out. Shocked and confused, I ask the obvious, "What do you mean?" Turns out, as I discovered by calling the prison, that my aunt busted my mother out of prison on falsified documents where they forged my signature and gave my contact information. And told the prison that there was a funeral and that my mother's presence was required. 1. I live in a separate province. 2. There isn't a funeral or service. There is absolutely no reason for her to be outside of prison during a pandemic. Especially when prisons are COVID-19 hotspots. So I had to call the police because if caught, I could lose my livelihood, my license, and a career I love. After all, my mother didn't want to grieve in prison and had zero regards for anyone else's health and well-being. I texted everyone in my family to encourage my aunt to my mother back to prison, or I would have no choice but to call the police and charge my aunt with identity theft and have a warrant issued for my mother. Something I really don't want to do. However, my family is calling me an insensitive idiot for not allowing the family to get together to grieve because I can't be there and I'm taking it out on them. So I called my aunt directly, recorded the call, and told her if she didn't return my mother to prison by noon tomorrow, I would call the police and have them issue a warrant for my mother and have her charged with identity theft. AITA for not allowing my family for using me to basically prison break my mother? Not the idiot. Please stop giving these people chances. Call the police, report the identity theft, and let the cops go after whoever. This is not your fault, and the longer you hesitate and give chances and worry you're the idiot, the more likely it is that this will ruin your life. Not the idiot. But call the police prison now and report it. Without the prison knowing what happened, what will stop them from doing something similar again and just telling everyone not to tell you? Don't risk it. Not the idiot, and you should turn your aunt in, regardless. She stole your identity, forged your signature, and potentially mixed your name up in a prisoner escape. No way. She should be sharing a cell with your mother. Update. Spoke to my lawyer and asked how it was possible for my aunt to pick up my mother from prison. Turns out, due to the pandemic, visitors are a no-no. In my case, inmates who are furloughed go through all the steps to leave, but the family members are outside waiting. And on a page I did not see originally, they had my aunt's address as a potential address for my mother to stay, but it was put as a secondary, not as a primary. So I guess the ball was severely dropped, but I won't have definitive answers till I call on Monday. Y'all, please stop assuming my brother is going to prison. He is a lot of things, but he wouldn't help my mother or aunt with this jailbreak. If anything, he is a grief-stricken victim who just wanted to see his mom for the first time since the pandemic and be sad about our grandfather. Who is also currently being the idiot because he feels I should let them all grieve. My brother did nothing illegal. My brother is a minor, 14 years old, y'all, so no, he couldn't furlough our mother out. Also, I do not hate my mother. My mother gave me up when I was 11 years old but kept my other siblings and had more like rehomed me to another family without getting the province involved. She had no parental rights to me because she signed them away to this family. During that time while I was not in her custody, she continued to gather government benefits, claiming I was still with her. Benefits she claimed were beyond your basic child benefits, but other government money she was not entitled to. It all came crashing down about 3 years ago when she was arrested for fraud beyond $5,000, and then I was being investigated because of my mother, despite the fact I wasn't even aware of any of this. Context? I reconnected with my grandfather when I was in university and we were very close. All of my siblings were told to testify. I didn't want to because I didn't want to be involved. I told the prosecution this, so they subpoenaed me. No, I cannot plead the fifth, that doesn't work here. Secondly, after many conversations I had with my own legal representation at the time, it was best that I testified. So I did. During that time, her violent history was brought up. So y'all keep claiming she is a non-violent person is incorrect. She just got caught with a non-violent crime, which is actually violent because cases like this make it harder for people to collect the benefits they are entitled to. Not to mention she has a history of fraud that started with my grandmother, her own mother, and my grandfather, who by the way, also testified against her. Trust me, nobody wanted to be involved in sending her to prison. All of this history led to her being sentenced to 5 years, which meant she ended up in federal prison because provincial prison is for sentences of 2 years and under. Federal is 2 or more years. I don't even call her mom anymore but did so in this post because of anonymity and simplicity. Why I bring up COVID-19? Because we are actively still living in a pandemic regardless of whatever stages of reopening we are in. She has not been tested for COVID-19, and prisons are currently COVID-19 hotspots. So yes, I don't want her around my immunocompromised family members, which by the way includes my aunt who is battling breast cancer. I don't want people to die of COVID-19 or even have it. She can grieve like everyone else is at home, but her home just happens to be a prison. I told all of this to the warden of the prison my mother is at while also on the phone with the detective I spoke to yesterday and my lawyer. 2 investigations are now happening: who authorized my mother's furlough at the prison, my aunt's identity theft, which I'll probably take a restorative justice path to, and whatever else the Crown decides to charge her with.